and gentlemen, good evening viewers. I'm Matthias Aufiku, news editor of the Namibian Sun newspaper. Welcome to another exciting edition of the Evening Review Show. Before we get into the business of the night, let's first have a look at tomorrow's headlines. Well, we're back from that. We're joined in studio tonight by Mr. Shacky Timburwa. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Matthias.
The African Director for the Global Chamber of Business Leaders.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
What is the chamber all about? Such a fancy name.
Yeah, it's a fancy name indeed.
Yeah?
It's because of what they do, what we do. Thank you so much. So what the Global Business Chamber of Leaders does is that it's an institution, or it's an institution that is formulated with different doyens or captains of industry and different professionals. So what they've done is that they are an investment vehicle that helps countries, whether in Asia, whether it's in Africa, whether it's in Europe, or whether it's in America. So they had offices in Asia, and they also had offices in Europe and also in America, but they didn't have an office in Africa. So what they simply do is that they have got all the companies that cuts across all spectrum, whether it's your agriculture, it's your pharmaceuticals, it's your automobile, it's your tourism, it's your aviation, it's your defense, it's your clinics, or whatever you can think about. So what they then do is that they are people who are also capital ventures who are part of the global chamber. They are people who want to invest in different green zones or brownfields that we have across the globe. So what they do, the chamber then comes in as the bridge to say, okay, we have got an investment opportunity that is in Namibia. Probably it's in tourism sector, probably it's in the health sector, probably it's in the marketing sector, probably it's the industry and commerce sector. So basically the global chamber is a channel whereby it helps governance, it helps companies to reach their full exploitation. Yeah.
Before we continue with talks on the chamber, I'd like you to give us, the viewers, just an appreciation of who you are and what you're doing here in Namibia.
That's fine. So my name is Shacky Timburwa. I'm a 29-year-old and I was born in Zimbabwe, but I always want to call myself an African, not a Zimbabwean, because my interests cut across the whole of African spectrum. And I was recently listed in the Forbes magazine, 30 under 30, the class of 2021. I was also listed on the Pan-African most 100 and influential young leaders. This year also I was given another accolade of being one of the most powerful CEOs under the age of 30. And then recently, like last week but one, I was also a keynote speaker at the GITEX, which is the most biggest global technological expo that was taking place in Dubai, and also at Dubai Expo. So in a nutshell, that's me.
That's you.
Yes. I also have companies, my own personal companies, my own personal enterprise. The other one specifically deals with energy. That's your clean energy. The other one is into construction, and the other one is in the mining sector.
Yeah. Let's talk investment.
Definitely.
Of course, the continent has struggled over the years
a lot,
to pull investment
a lot
to the continent.
Definitely.
So your role as the director for the chamber, for the African segment, what positive offshoots can we expect as a continent, whether it's through facilitation or through actual investments here?
You know what's happening? There's always been a narrative to say we are looking for investments. I'll tell you something that I've actually studied and I've observed over the years dealing with these global leaders, global investors, global companies. Money is not a problem. They have got money sitting and lying around that is waiting to be invested. But the problem they always have whenever they want to put an investment is the security of their equity or the security of the investment they want to channel towards a certain environment. So the problem that we have in Africa is not that of not having opportunities that can be invested into. We have got so many plenty opportunities in the mining sector, in the agricultural sector, you can name it, aviation, construction, you can name it, we have it. But the problem that we are having as the whole continent, not to just single out a country, is that we are creating a hostile environment whereby an investor is looking at the return of investment and the security, the stability of that kind of environment he wants to inject his money into, and then at the end of the day they end up fleeing away.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest problem. If we can be able to deal with that, which is the root cause of why Africa is always lagging behind when it comes to investments.
Yeah, it's always interesting when investors speak of the lack of security and to throw the investments in there. But if you look at countries such as Iraq and even Afghanistan, there are investors there.
True.
But it's not safe and secure.
You know what happens with Iraq, and there are different types of investors. There are investors who are investing simply because they want to exploit what they can get in a country. Yeah. And then they check out. So the levels of risk, they are very high, but the levels of returns are also very high. Why am I saying so? The levels of risks, they know that these economies are controlled by oligarchs. These are people who are militant. These are people who are ruthless. These are people who can say, okay, we are putting in money, and whatever that happens, they operate on a mafia basis. Then there are people who are willing to invest on the basis of also beneficiation of the citizens of the country. They will have a problem when they realize that they are trying to channel an investment. Like, for example, they want to channel investment towards the health sector, but there is a minister in the Ministry of Health who wants to be given his own money to satisfy his own personal greed before the people or the citizens have benefit. Yeah. That's what then happens with the legit investors who wants to come. They have a snag whereby the people that we elect into power, they want to satisfy their own appetite at the expense of the citizens, and that becomes a problem.
Yeah. I'm sure you being in Namibia, you must have seen something here. There must be a reason why you're here.
Definitely.
Hopefully investment driven.
Definitely. You know, Namibia is a very beautiful country. I was discussing with the chairman of the Global Chamber, and we were looking at the possibilities of synergies that can happen in Namibia. Just to give you a few, Namibia has got the oldest desert globally. This is the oldest desert we have. This is whereby the ocean meets the sea. And if you look at that, have you ever considered why we have more tourists going to Dubai more than they are coming to Namibia? But Namibia has got a bigger, vast desert than that one, which is in Dubai. The reason is simply because of the innovation that the United Arab Emirates have invested in the environment they have. Instead of them complaining about having a desert that is not arable, they innovated their way into becoming a global hub, which is what also Namibia needs, to have a set of people, a group of people who can come and analyze the geoposition of Namibia. They analyze the resource assets that are in Namibia. They analyze all the spectrum of the Namibian country. How can we open the Namibian economy post-COVID? Like, for example, how do we attract more investors? How do we attract more tourists to come to Namibia? Not only to come from Yemen, but to come from all over the world. How do we also make Namibia have probably an open sky policy whereby we have more than 21, 28 channels whereby we know that, okay, now there's Emirates that is coming, there's Qatar that is coming, there's British Airways that is coming. All those things are possibilities that are in Namibia. Why? It's because Namibia has got the land to support that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like the Dubai you've mentioned, you've seen that most African governments are not actively involved in the tourism sector when it comes to investment. It's mostly run by the private sector.
Definitely.
So how do you turn that corner?
You know, the problem is that we have to get to a point whereby as Africans we control the narrative of our continent. We don't have to have people detecting what Africa is. We have to tell our story as Africans with an African-centric fusion, right? So for example, like you're saying, the tourism sector is infested by private players. The simplest reason why it's like that, and I like Namibia in the sense that if you check the government of Namibia, they are trying so hard to include the fresh young blood into the decision-making board and stuff like that. These are people that have got exposure. But the best way to turn that around, like for example, like I say, I'm coming with a jacket of the Global Chamber. In the chamber, there is the secretary of the World Tourism Organization. These are the people who are trying to give the barricades or how tourism should be done on a global scale. And then let's say they are now working with Namibia. We are using Namibia as a model. We are now looking at, okay, what are the features that should be put in place? How should Namibia structure their tourism policy to attract investments towards tourism? I'll give you, like, for example, we say, okay, we're going to have a project. We want to expand the airport of Hokotako, right? We want to increase the terminals of Hakutaku. We want to have at least about 80 terminals. The moment that project is embarked on, there is investment that is being channeled towards the airport. But the airport will not be a stand-alone project. There is now need of supporting infrastructure because they are now having connecting flights. People are coming through Namibia to connect to other destinations, which means we now need also hotels that are supporting the infrastructure that we have done. Imagine the kind of revenue that will be trickling into the fiscal of the Namibian government towards the airport, towards the hospitality, towards... Then the moment we are doing that, our airport is awash with what's happening in the coast, what's happening here, then people start to trickle into the Namibian government. I'll give you a very good example. Have you ever thought how it would feel like if we sign a deal for Namibian government and probably Chelsea Football Club, they come to Namibia to go and do something, a vacation in the holidays? How many people are rallying behind Chelsea? How many people are rallying behind Manchester? Look at what Rwanda did. They signed a deal. They pumped in money there, but look at the returns that are happening to Rwanda. So these are the possibilities of synergies of things that can be done to open up the economy of Namibia.
Yeah, because you would see government reasoning to say, so do we rather pump in money into tourism or education or the health sector? So those are the challenges that they are seemingly sitting with.
You know, those challenges, they can always be circumvented. How do you circumvent that? Never spend more than you can create. That's a principle of entrepreneurship. I should never spend more than I'm creating in a day. If I'm making $1,000 in a day, my expenditure, at least it should be ranging between 5 to 10%, right? So a government, they should always have a very deliberate move. Yes, we are injecting in the education sector, we are injecting in the health sector, but how much are we also injecting money into other sectors that bring revenue back so that we can be able to support these other sectors? Like, for example, if look at Dubai, how much money is Dubai raking in right now through the expo? I was at the expo myself. You buy a ticket. For you to get into the expo, you're buying a ticket, and each ticket is costing not less than $30. And at every given hour in the expo, there are not less than 5 to 10,000 people who are watching the exhibition that is happening. This expo is going to run for 6 months till 2022. Right, we are talking about, at least let's just work with an average of 5,000 people per hour who are paying $30. Let's calculate that into 24 hours. Like now, they're now closing at 10 p.m., 11 p.m. Let's calculate that from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. there's revenue coming in on a minute basis. And this project is going to run for the next 6 months. So you look at the investment of the infrastructure that was put vis-a-vis the revenue that is coming. The revenue, the excess revenue now can then be channeled towards the health sector, can now be channeled towards the education sector. So there has to be a deliberate analysis of saying, okay, how are we disbursing our funds as the government? And then the moment that is clear, how are we disbursing our funds towards the mining sector? Because the mining sector has got the power to bring back revenue within the economy, and we can revive every other industry or every other ministry.
Yeah. It's good that you spoke of the mining sector. I was going to get there because we have the issue of oil exploration going on in the northern part of the country.
True. And
one of the major factors Namibia has faced over the years is government's ability or government institutions' ability to pump in money into exploration. That's why you see that in most of the licenses, our companies would have 10% of the entire operation and so on. It's a cost-intensive operation. The government doesn't have the funds.
That's true.
So how do you then balance the two?
This is whereby they need us more than we need them. I'm talking about these investors. I'll give you a very good example. Like in the global chamber, there are people who are into oil exploration. These guys, they know the value of oil. They are exhausting their own wells wherever they are coming from. And they are looking for green fields like the one that you're talking about. So these guys, number one, they've got the expertise. These guys, they've got the experience. These guys, they've got the money because they've made money with the other oils that they have done. The goal is now then to structure or probably lobby a synergy between the country or the government with a company that is coming not to exploit the resource, but also do things that benefit the citizens and the government at large. What am I talking about? We want a setup whereby we have an investor who's coming into Namibia, specifically, let's say, for example, for that project of the oil exploration. There has to be a supporting system of our students from our universities who are going to be employed there. There has to be a supporting system of the people, like the government has got the product. This is the value. We have the right value. The goal is for us to lobby for the best deal possible. We stop exporting crude products, but the full valuation of the oil that is going to be produced, it has to leave Namibia as a consumable product, not as a raw material. Because if you allow it to live as as a crude product, definitely they'll go and do value addition in their own respective areas and respective continents. The moment we do that, for us to buy the same product back is now times 10. So I think this is the issue of knowing what we have, the mining assets that we have, whether it's gold, whether it's diamond, we then use them because they are bankable. They can be JORC certified. They are bankable. Once they are bankable, we look for people who are coming not to exploit what we have, but who are also coming with infrastructure to support whatever that we have. And we do beneficiation in Africa, value addition in Namibia, and then we create employment for the youth that we have.
Yeah. So why do you then think, in terms when it comes to this type of negotiations, our governments are always, during these negotiations, they are always on the back foot? Why is this the case? I'm sure they know that the resources they are managing are bankable.
You know the problem that has been happening over the years is that we had people who undermine the value that we have. Africa as a whole should come to a point of realizing that we are the support system of the whole globe. Starting from food-wise, commodities, raw materials. It's high time as Africans we are supposed to stand guard of what we have and we get the proper value of whatever we want. Imagine Britain, they don't have any gold in Britain. They are mining their gold in Africa and the gold is being exported to Britain. It's being processed in Britain. Look at, we have got coffee in Ghana, we have got coffee in Rwanda. But look at the biggest countries when it comes to processing is Switzerland. They are the ones who make the most beautiful sweet chocolates. Why don't we have these companies from Switzerland come and establish manufacturing possibilities in Africa, and then our youths are employed? There is know-how exchange, there is knowledge exchange. Before we know it, we are able to do these things alone.
Yeah. Shacky, we'll go on a quick break before we continue.
Sure.
After the break, I want us to touch on your listing as one of the 100 most influential young people on the continent.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Matthias.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back after this short break.
Hello Namibia, this is your favorite girl, Top Cherry What. Are you vaccinated? If yes, a round of applause to you. If not, fear not, because we got you. Top Cherry What will be coming to a village, a town, or somewhere near you very soon to get vaccinated with you. Cool, hey? I know. Please help me so we help the rest of the nation kick out COVID. Top Cherry What? My Namibia, my country, my pride.
Strike it gold and win 5,000 Namibian dollars in cash with Neo Paints. Simply buy Neo Paints products from the selected range and stand a chance to get one of 12 mystery buckets filled with gold paint. All 12 winners will each get 3 extra paint buckets equal to their purchase. One to replace the gold paint, the second to use on your project, and the third to give to a charity of their choice. One winner can score another 10,000 Namibian dollars by showing us your creative use of the golden paint. The best project wins the cash. Offer is valid from 27 September to 18 December at your favorite hardware store nationwide. Visit us at neopaints.com for more competition details and follow us on Facebook for weekly competition updates. Neo Paints, a coat of excellence.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Shacky, we're back.
Thank you so much, Matthias. Thank you.
You're listed as one of the 100 most influential young people in Africa.
It's an honor.
For years, young people have not been on the table of leadership.
Definitely.
And perhaps it explains why we have such a high rate of youth unemployment.
Definitely, that's true. And also to consider that Africa, as Africa, we have got the biggest bulge of the youth. And the unemployment rate is too high. It's very worrisome. Yeah.
But what does this listing mean? Do you have any influence compared to your ordinary young person on the street? What does it mean?
Okay. I would say my listing, or what these accolades mean to me, is that they are a manifestation of a possibility of an African dream. I was born in the streets of a ghetto. I grew up in a ghetto. We were playing soccer. We were like, you know, going to your government schools. And I was also raised with a single mother. So these accolades, what they entail to me is that whatever you are passionate and determined to do, there is nothing impossible. Because according to me, in my world, impossible is the new possibility. So I would say we have to control the narrative of the Africa we want as the young people, as the youth. I'll give you a very good example of where we are having a problem, why we now have a high level of unemployment in Africa. Look at the founding father of Namibia, Dr. Mjoma. You realize that when they were at the age of 16 to 30, this generation of theirs, the founding fathers, the Kwame Nkrumahs, they were focusing on the liberation and the emancipation of our countries and our economies. And let's look at our age right now, the focus of our 16 years to 30 years. You will see we are chasing after Instagram, we are chasing after MySpace, we are chasing after Snapchat, which then actually brings us the problem that we are having, especially in Africa, of having leadership that doesn't want to hand over power to the young people. It's not just deliberate. Let's look at what they have done, how they have fought to emancipate the country, and you want to hand it over to a generation which is stripping naked on Instagram, which means there is also a challenge that needs to be posed on the younger generation to say, guys, let's be responsible. Let's focus on things that determine the narrative of an African economy, things that can transform our African narrative globally. So you see, once we have that, I'll give a very good example of a country. If you look at the Fidel Castro and the Che Guevara, look at their country. What they managed to do, the history of the country of Cuba and the youths. If you meet a youth and he explains to you the narrative of Cuba, what happened for Cuba to be free, they can intertwine that. It's being passed in a very systematic manner that they feel responsible. Look at Israel. In Israel, before you go for any other business, after you're done with school, you go for national service. I'm not saying let's go for national, but they are being taught to become allegiant. They are declaring an oath of allegiance to the government and to the purposes of, they are becoming nationalists. If you meet an Israeli today, every Israeli you see, they'll be having a name tag. They are trained. Why do they do that? They know their country is surrounded by enemies. They have got no mineral whatsoever to depend upon. They depend upon themselves. They depend upon the one resource that God gave them, which is under the sky, not under the earth crust. What does Africa do? We have got so much ubiquitous amount of minerals that are under the belly of the earth. But we are not developing our mindset. Henceforth, we are exploited by the people who exploited from the very first.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of really pushing the youth agenda,
yes,
without being on the decision-making tables, what is the alternative?
The alternative is that we as the young people, we have to be responsible. That's the first thing. Our mindset has to change. We don't have to expect to be put on a table that food or good life should not come on a silver platter. We should start to conscientize our youth, starting from our education system. I have a problem with the African education system. You know why I'm saying so? Number one, it starts from the semantics, the language that we are using to study these things. Imagine if people in Namibia were studying, I'll just use one local language, Ashwambo. Imagine if we were learning geography using Ashwambo language. Imagine you were learning mathematics, who was going to fail? But the problem, the first obstacle that I have to learn English first, which is a foreign language. After I learn English, I now have to know what are diabatic growths, what is this? That poses a challenge. Let's look at our neighboring continents. In China, everything you see is written in Chinese. Whether it's school, whether it's what. So which means these guys, they've got an added advantage. So you see, once we have that, and our education system should train us to become employers, not employee. Should train us to create jobs, not to go seeking for jobs. Should train us to become, if we have got accountants, the mindset has to be of creating financial institutions like the JP Morgan. How did they do that? It's a mindset that was invested in the people.
Yeah. Lastly on this list.
Sure.
I'd like to know from you, the 100 of you on this list, what do you think is your role in pushing the youth agenda on the continent?
You know, the 100 of us that are on that list, I believe it's a mandate to everyone who's listed on that list, not to take it as a prestigious position, but as a responsibility position to inspire wherever you're coming from. to say, you know what, young people, we can control the narrative and we can support our governance until they become fully responsible for the betterment of the lives of the citizens. Because at the end of the day, you realize that the reason why the African continent is being exploited continuously is because we are not, we don't believe in the greatness of Africa. You look at America, United States of America, let's make America great. But if it's in an African narrative, I'm standing with my own Namibia. Whatever happens in South Africa is none of my business. I'm standing with my Nigeria. That balkanized system that we have in Africa, that's one thing that is becoming a struggle for us to realize potential. I can give you an example of the country that we're talking about. The moment the United Arab Emirates joined forces, they ceased to compete. They started complementing each other. They have got one education system. They've got one medical system. Look at Africa. We need 56 different passports for me to cut across Africa, but we are all black people. So these things, if you look at them, they seem like they are good for us, but we are not responsible. Yet as blacks, we are supposed to be. I should be my brother's keeper. I should be my sister's keeper. Whatever happens in Gambia should worry me in Namibia. Whatever happens in Nigeria, the SARS effects that are happening in Nigeria, they should worry me. Whatever happens, the xenophobia that might happen in South Africa should worry a person who's in Mozambique. Why? Because we are the same people coming from one continent.
Okay. Let's just move to the last segment of the show.
Sure.
Forbes Africa 30 under 30.
Definitely.
Run us through that a bit.
You know, Forbes 30 under 30, that one is a bit tense.
Did you expect it?
I was not even expecting it, but I knew. The reason why I knew is because I had people who were actually my mentees who were listed before I was listed. So they then realized I'm younger than 30 because they thought I'm above 30. Yeah. And they realized, no, I can also fit in. But it's quite, I like what Forbes magazine is doing, Forbes Africa magazine is doing. You know why? It inspires people, because when I was growing up, we would hear Forbes is for the rich. So when I was growing up, I never had a dream to say I will be in the Forbes magazine.
So are you rich? Do you still believe Forbes is for the rich?
I'm just comfortable. I'm just comfortable. But it's a good initiative that the Forbes magazine is coming with. Yeah. It gives us the sense of also represented in the Forbes magazine. It also gives us the sense of saying, okay, we can also do this in an African way. Yes. So I also encourage the other youth that are watching this, the Namibians that are watching this. Actually, there are nominations for the next listing. They are open. So if you want to apply and you need help, I'll make sure myself I'm available for that.
Very good. Yeah. This also brings me to the issue of the finance and business on the continent. There has been shortcomings. We've always been hearing that abundance of resources, but the continent is poor.
Definitely.
Why this disparity?
I'll give you a very good example. How many years have we had the US aid coming to Africa with financial assistance? It has proven not to work to give African countries money. What we need is not money. What we need is infrastructure. What we need is equipment that not an individual can take and pocket into his offshore account. You, instead of giving an African country $1 billion, give an African country equipment that is worth $1 billion that they can use into production. That's the only thing, because you see, the problem that we have, this is the problem that I have with most of our African politics. We are voted into power by the love of the people. But some of the love, if you check at the systematic way this is happening, it's not credible. What do I mean by saying it's not credible? You realize that it was supposed to be earned, a public position is supposed to be earned by merit. What have you done prior to you occupying the office of serving as a public servant? You don't want a person who gets into the parliament but he has never run the business. That person is going to make legislations that are not supporting a business person. That's why you see right now in Africa, we are coming up with a system whereby there are so many coups that are now happening. We now have a lot of business people that are leaving, they seem like they are leaving the business fraternity to get into politics. They don't want to get into politics. What they are simply trying to do is to protect their interests, because they know people who are into the parliament, they don't know how to create a favorable environment for a person who's an investor, for a person who's a businessman. So in trying to save their enterprise, they end up getting into politics, which politicians are supposed to be very smart. They should make systems and legislations that make business people remain business people, not business people to end up encroaching to become politicians to protect their interest. And the other reason why we are having people who are misusing funds, abusive funds, looting of funds is simply because we are electing people into public offices who are hungry. The first time they get into that public position, they are looking at satisfying their own greed and their own appetite. But if you look at a person who has established something, this person is comfortably living, and this person knows how to fly privately with his own personal funds. This person knows how to buy expensive things or comfortable things with his own money. The moment they sit on the decision-making board, they are not there to make their appetite full. They are there to serve the people because they have lived it already. You see, that's my belief, and that's what I believe. That's what will help us as Africans. When we are electing people into public offices, let's look at the trail of what they have done prior to them occupying that particular office.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that Africa doesn't need money, it needs infrastructure.
True.
Isn't this perpetuating the dependency syndrome we're trying to get rid of on the continent?
You see, the problem that's there is how these deals are being structured. Actually, the way some of the deals are being structured, it can actually serve as a recolonization of Africa in a very smart way. What do I mean by that? You realize that there are people who want to invest in Africa, but for them to invest, they also want to control your politics. And then there are other people who know that Africans, they don't want anyone to meddle with their politics. They don't care with your politics. They are coming for your resources. Whatever you do with your politics, they inject money into your infrastructure and everything, but they are looting your country. Yes. So we have to have a deliberate move. But that's why I'm saying the unification of Africa is very important. Why? We have a central system that guides every African country on what kind of investments to take, what kind of deals to lobby for. Right now, you see, Namibia is pursuing another deal, Nigeria is pursuing another deal. How those deals are being structured, you realize that probably 10 years from now, 15 years from now, the whole continent has been mortgaged. It will be very painful. Yeah. We will say, no, we have got this, but there is a treaty signed for 50 years. And you think we have got future, but there's no future because the whole thing has been mortgaged. Why? We were not deliberate enough to protect that which we have. Because ultimately, these resources, they are depleting because they are being consumed. They are like a 2 kg sugar. Every day you put a teaspoon into your shea. It might seem like it's a 50 kg, but that teaspoon, ultimately, that 50 kg will be empty. So as Africans, if you're not smart enough to protect that which God has blessed us, no one will protect for us. No one.
Mm-hmm. Lastly,
sure,
just before you give us your exit remarks,
sure,
the issue of well-off individuals getting into office and this notion that they won't be looting like those who are not well off, is that tried and tested, or is just something that we believe?
I'll give you a very good example.
The case.
Every continent is struggling. Let's go to America. They've got issues of looting. But the appetite of a person who's hungry and the appetite of a person who has at least lived the life is different. We should never elect people into public offices who don't have a name to protect, an integrity to protect. You don't want a person who doesn't care what happens next after I loot the money that is supposed to go and buy generators in the hospital. You need a person who's got a heart of being remorseful to say, okay, if I eat this money was supposed to buy generators to power a clinic or to power a hospital. What happens the day there is going to be a shortage of electricity? There are people who are on life support machines, and then they will die simply because I had this money. And then that will serve as a way to say, okay, I will not do this because there are lives that are going to be depending on this kind of investment. As long as we don't have people who have got people at heart, who are people-centric in whatever decision they make. Because I believe leadership is about what you are willing to sacrifice for the betterment of the people that you're leading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Your exit comments before?
Thank you so much.
That wasn't your exit one.
Yeah,
I need your last comment.
Thank you so much. My exit comments are, as Africans, we are supposed to be united in purpose and never be divided. Simply because those that are exploiting us, our natural resources, our young people, the reason why we have this high level of brain drain that is leaving Africa to go for greener pastures is simply because we are not united in the purpose of making our continent great. Let's be united in this particular agenda. Let's be united. We are the only continent that is not united. The Arabs, they made their own United Arab Emirates. America is the United States of America. China, 1.3 billion being ruled by one person. India the same. So the only continent that is left out in this particular agenda is Africa. And the reason why they don't want it to happen in Africa, they know how formidable we can be as a continent once we have a unified system of ruling everything that we have.
Yeah.
Thank
Shacky,
you.
thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy the rest of your stay in Namibia.
Thank you so much. The land of the brave.
Thank
Definitely
you,
I'll
definitely.
enjoy. Thank
Good.
you.